restraint. This says the security situation continues to deteriorate in the east of the country and violence breaks out in Jonglei State. This has led to the displacement of a large number of civilians. Kaelihle Khumalo reports.
The African Union boss Mahmoud Ali Yusuf says he's gravely alarmed by reports of inflammatory rhetoric and actions that risk inciting further violence. He has called on all parties to exercise restraint, de-escalate tensions, and comply with a peace agreement. The AU chief has urged South Sudanese stakeholders to place the interest of the people above all other considerations. The AU has reaffirmed its commitment in supporting Juba to achieve long-lasting peace, stability, and reconciliation.
A Ugandan court has released on bail prominent rights activist Sarah Birete, whose detention was seen by campaign groups as part of a widespread crackdown on dissent ahead of the country's general election that was held on the 15th of January. Birete, who heads the Center for Constitutional Governance, a Kampala-based pressure group, was detained on December 30th after questioning the accuracy of the voter register to be used in the poll. She was later charged with offences related to alleged unlawful disclosure of voters' information. The official results of the poll showed long-ruling incumbent Yoweri Museveni securing 71.6% of the votes. Opposition leader Bobi Wine, who is in hiding, is being sought by the military and has rejected the results. As education authorities in South Africa's Gauteng province work to finalize outstanding learner placements, the impact of the delays is increasingly being felt by learners themselves. The Gauteng Department of Education says it has placed more than 95% of grade 1 and grade 8 learners. However, capacity constraints continue to affect high-pressure districts, including Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni in the east. Some learners say repeated visits to district offices have yielded little progress, leaving them anxious as teaching and learning continues without them. Learner Nzwaulu Nkwashu remains hopeful of securing placement closer to home.
I feel sad and lonely and disappointed because the government doesn't help us. It's the fourth time coming here. They tell us the same thing each and every day. So it makes me feel like lonely and but I feel better when I see people around here. So I have hope that I'll get school near me.
The European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas has warned the continent needs to increase its defense efforts. She says relations with the US have been shaken to their foundations. Kallas told a defense conference in Brussels that NATO would remain as the bedrock of European security, but it needed to play a greater role within the alliance.
Europe is no longer Washington's primary center of gravity. The shift has been ongoing for a while. It is structural, not temporary. It means that Europe must step up. No great power in history has ever outsourced its survival and survived.
And finally, a new study estimates the number of Russian and Ukrainian troops killed, wounded or missing in the 4 years of war will reach 2 million in March. This is the biggest loss of life in Europe since the Second World War. The BBC's Sasha Schlinkter reports.
It's easy to be lulled into thinking that because Russia is advancing at a snail's pace, little is happening on the front line. In fact, Moscow's daily losses average 1,000 men, a price President Putin is clearly prepared to pay. Numbers have been notoriously hard to ascertain since Russia undercounts its casualties and Ukraine does not disclose official figures. But according to the respected Washington Center for Strategic and International Studies, Russia has suffered an estimated 1.2 million casualties, while Ukraine half that number. But Ukraine, with a much smaller population, is struggling to replace its losses.
Recapping the top story this hour, African Union Commission Chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf has called on all parties in South Sudan to exercise restraint. This as the security situation continues to deteriorate in the East African country. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, FIFA is expected to build 30 arena mini pitches in Morocco. And the Sunshine Development Tour East Africa Swing is making waves in Kenya. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy. Business, trade, and investment opportunities that put the continent first. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Kenya. Good afternoon, Senegal, the Comores, Botswana. Good afternoon to you, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Algeria. Good afternoon to you, Africa. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Tami Ngubeni. Coming up this hour, Moody's Ratings upgrades Kenya's sovereign credit rating to CAA1 from B3. And the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa calls for the rehabilitation of hundreds of abandoned and care and maintenance gold and platinum mines. You're most welcome to input on our conversations and discussions this afternoon. You'll find us on all the various social media platforms. On X, Instagram and YouTube, you'll find us at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook, we are at Channel Africa. Welcome to it.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We begin here this hour. The United Nations Development Programme, which is linked as analysed and supported by the African Business Research, suggests that Africa may be losing nearly $75 billion every year due to higher borrowing costs driven by perceived risk, often referred to as the Africa Risk Premium. Of the continent's 53 countries, 33 are rated below investment grade, while only 2 hold investment grade status. So what does this mean for the future of Africa's credit profile? Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Simosa has the details.
Delegates attending the launch of the African Credit Rating Association, ACRA, are calling for a fairer and more accurate assessment of Africa's financial landscape. Ibrahim Chauneka, Chief Executive Officer of the International Credit Rating Agency, Zimbabwe, says current rating frameworks often fail to reflect the continent's true economic realities.
I think first and foremost, it is a fact that 33 countries out of the 54 are rated, and a very small percentage are in the investment grade. And that investment grade, we're talking about triple B. And you know there's an A, there's a double A, and a triple A on top of that. So essentially, what has been happening is that I think from when you read literature around credit ratings, particularly in Africa, you find that there is always an agreement that information is scarce. There is asymmetry of information.
Chaunera says the launch of ACRA is timely and will help ensure credit rating agencies have access to credible, Africa-focused information.
Now, but when you talk to somebody who's sitting in a jurisdiction like myself, I will tell you that information is available. It may be in silos, in bits and pieces around. So we have an association like ACRA. It is now amalgamating all that information for purposes of it being used, so that when the rating is done, all the information, all the contours of information, the nuances are picked.
But how can ACRA balance global standards with Africa's unique economic and development challenges? Narina Fessar, who represents the CFA Institute, shares her perspective.
I love that question. I want to go back to what I refer to almost as my Damascus moment around this topic almost 30 years ago, when I saw for the first time the rail map in Africa. And I noticed that all of the railroads in Africa, as it was 30 years ago, went from the mines to the ports. In other words, everything was about getting stuff out of this continent. And there was hardly any infrastructure that connected the continent inside, so these different rail systems. When they then started wanting to connect the rail system inside the continent, it was found that depending on who the original colonial master was, the gauges of these rail tracks could not be connected because the French and the British and the Portuguese, these tracks did not talk to one another. So you needed special connectors to even connect the existing rail infrastructure inside the continent. We've got exactly the same situation in terms of financial market infrastructure. All of our financial market is focused on capital flows out of the continent, trying to attract capital flows to come into the continent.
Dr. Nick Apple, representing the Future of Job Summit, says independent credit rating are critical to building credibility, boosting investor confidence, and shaping Africa's financial future.
Absolutely, and the timing could not be better because the space where the world is right now favors Africa. It favors South Africa, and as the world is resetting, I think Accra has a great opportunity to now bring all the credit rating agencies together and speak with one voice.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
It is exactly 12 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Now, Moody's Ratings has upgraded Kenya's sovereign credit rating to CAA1 from B3, pointing to a reduced near-term default risk underpinned by stronger external liquidity and improved access to international capital markets. This move comes just days after Fitch Ratings affirmed Kenya's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at B- with a stable outlook, reinforcing the assessment that external risks have eased even as fiscal pressures remain. To dissect this further, we joined this afternoon by Kenyan economist Martin Adati. A very good afternoon to you, Martin. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Hello.
Welcome. So perhaps let's go straight into it, Martin, and highlight for us some of the factors that could have attributed to Moody's decision to upgrade Kenya's rating at this time.
Hello.
Hello, Martin. Can you hear us?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, lovely. Welcome to Africa in Business. Let's start off this afternoon, Martin, with you highlighting some of the factors.
You are breaking.
Yes, and our line is not clear at all, so I am going to ask our producer, Mabu, just to try and get you on a clearer line. It sounds like Mr. Martin Adati, they're not having the best of connections, and the background there is very noisy as well. So let's give that a moment and reconnect with him once again in a short while as we focus on the latest developments regarding Kenya's rating by Moody's.
Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chemane.
Lelinhle, talk to us about your relationship with your father, Coach Pitso. What is this one thing that he said to you that is still stuck at the top of your head?
Coach Pitso and our mom, Moira Tlhagale, have always told us that whatever we do in life, we must do it to the best of our abilities. That, represent our family well. But the big thing is do what you love and do it with all the passion that you have. And I think we see it in both their work. I mean, my mom has done a really good job with placing Coach Pitso in different clubs around the world, and she's negotiated contracts, and she's shown that as a woman you can also do work that is seen, and you can also get respect from men in a male-dominated space. And I think my dad has also shown that you must never underestimate the Black African man.
Lelinhle Mosimane, a South African communications and digital media professional. Lelinhle is also a daughter to a great mentor when it comes to the game of football, Coach Jingles Mosimane.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. African Enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 15 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Let's hope it's second time lucky as we once again reconnect with Kenyan economist Martin Adati to focus on Moody's having upgraded Kenya's sovereign credit rating to B3, or rather to CAA1 from B3. Martin, thank you for joining us once again. I wanted us to start off this afternoon with a look at the factors that could have attributed to this change of rating by Moody's and their decision to upgrade Kenya's credit rating.
I think the main factor, the government did what we call a securitization. of some of the funds, like the fuel levy funds. Then the government is also flooding shares in strategic companies like Kenya Pipeline and Safaricom, which have generated quite some money, which is largely supposed to be ring-fenced and used for infrastructure. So that has taken away the pressure from the Treasury. Although there have also been challenges in terms of the government, when they introduced the e-procurement system, the government has not been able to spend for the last last quarter. So largely it is because of the securitization of the fuel levy and the money that is coming from the liquidation of the assets where government has a huge shareholding, starting with Safaricom, which brought in, supposed to bring in close to 250 billion. Then you have APLC is also supposed to bring in another close to 150 billion, and many others. So that is the main reason. Our currency has also been largely stable, and then we are now not going in for more infrastructure loans. So that is taking away the pressure from the government in terms of borrowing for infrastructure. Then the government has also changed the model they are using. They are using largely the PPP model rather than the model of borrowing loans. So that has eased the pressure on the Treasury, and that is what is contributing largely to the improved ratings from Moody's.
Apart from all the positives that you've listed now and the improvements that Kenya has put in place, there are some fiscal pressures that still exist. Could you highlight some of those challenges that Kenya is still battling with?
Pardon?
Could you highlight some Could you highlight some of the fiscal pressures that Kenya is still dealing with right now?
Some of them?
The fiscal challenges, the fiscal pressures?
We've had challenges in terms of the expenditure side because, our debt service, the amount of money now we are putting on servicing debt has been very huge. It's still huge, and our recurrent expenditure for salaries, the public servants and the people at the county is also very high. Then the money that goes into the counties, we have from 2010 when we introduced the new constitution, we brought in the devolved system of government, and that takes quite a bit of money. We take almost half a trillion shillings to the counties. So those are some of the things that are putting the Treasury under a lot of financial fiscal strain.
This upgrade that's just happened now, is it likely to improve Kenya's borrowing costs as well as investor appetite moving forward?
Yeah, once Moody's gives you a fair rating, it means if the government were now to go out there to float an Eurobond or to borrow money for bonds from the external market, they will get them at a lower interest rate. That is largely because it shows that whatever loan you take will not default. So the exposure and the risk profile of the country goes down. That means now you can access money from the external markets at favorable terms.
This Moody's upgrade follows the recent affirmation by Fitch as well for Kenya and the economic policies that they have implemented. Were the ratings and the metrics used by these two credit rating agencies similar? Are the reasons for affirming Kenya's economic trajectory similar for both Moody's and Fitch?
The growth is looking positive, but the main issue has been people have been complaining that there is a liquidity crunch. But we had to have a drought, but we've seen even as we are talking to you, it's raining in Nairobi. And if it rains countrywide, then we have the fertilizer subsidy program. It means the pressures that would come with having a drought and a failed crop will not materialize. Then we'll have enough food. So inflation will go down, and once the food prices are stable and the economy is growing, then it is easier for us to have a fairly balanced budget. And also, the political stability. After the Gen Z revolts, the government has tried to come up with measures which accommodate the youth, like what the president is moving around doing, what is called the Nyota Fund, which is World Bank funded, where they give money to the youth to start projects. So they are trying to engage in activities which keep economic activities which target the youth, so that the youth are not able to easily go back to the streets to cause what happened during the Gen Z uprising.
All right.
So that political stability is also very critical.
All right, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Martin Adati, thank you so much for your insight and taking us through that particular story. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a Kenyan economist, Martin Adati. He takes us to 21 minutes after 4.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 24 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African price. It's all about the gold price. That's all I'm thinking of. Central African time. Yes, it is about the price. And it's the gold price that we've been focusing on and continue to focus on at this hour. It has continued to surge past the $5,000 an ounce. And on the back of this, the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa, GIBUSA, has called on the government in South Africa to take decisive action on hundreds of abandoned and care and maintenance gold and platinum mines. The union says the rise in mineral values underscores the need to rehabilitate gold and platinum mines, to prevent them from lying fallow, and also to consider their expropriation. For more on this, we joined on the line by the president of the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa, Mametli Sibe. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Pleasure to be here. Good afternoon to your viewers.
So let's get straight into it, sir, and thank you for your time this afternoon. You have put a case forward saying that mines, specifically gold mines and platinum mines, need to be expropriated and recapitalized. Why? Why are you putting this argument forward?
Well, let me start with the current crisis that we have. And there are two, basically, with relation to this question. One is the devastating levels of mass unemployment, in the mining and particularly the gold mining affected communities where you would know we have lost just from 1989 to the present moment over 447,000 workers, but actually approximately over 80 to 90% of the workforce when you take the highest percentage of employment in the gold mining, which was in 1979 when about 667, that is approximately 700,000 workers were employed in gold mining sector alone, down to where it is, which is about 93,000 and so on. So we have lost, basically approximately 600,000 workers, right? So the levels of unemployment are catastrophic because much as some workforce have moved into platinum mining, which has grown, and I think is a reason that when you look at the overall numbers of the, mining employment, they don't look as catastrophic. The reality in this community is devastating. And on the back of that, then you have had the rise of an organized criminal syndicates that are now taking advantage and parasiting on the desperation of the former gold miners, their families, their communities, to open the shafts and, demarcate the access to the rich seams, as well as, shafts and all of that. And in the course of doing that, we have seen a surge in the levels of horrific violence in these communities. And I think the situation currently is Porong, where the whole community had to move out of their houses to go to school, to seek shelter there. It's just a most graphic illustration of this. But in reality, the fact of the matter is that there's been an explosive, exponential, and unregulated growth of artisanal mining. And in a situation where the state does not provide regulation, support, and access to the market, the organized syndicates have stepped in. They're extorting the miners of their minerals, and in the course of that, imposing horrendous terror on the miners, their families, and communities. The rapes, the murders, and everything that you hear about what is happening there are all real and need to be confronted. So the state has got to step into this.
So Mr. Sibey, had the gold price not increased to the current levels now, which is over and above this $5,000 per ounce, would you still have made this call? Or is this call being made and it becoming even more urgent now because of the surge?
It is becoming all the more urgent because of the surge, because let's understand that the miners themselves, but also the syndicates, are attracted by how lucrative gold has become in this situation, right? It's easy to sell, it makes them a lot of money, and so on. So much as we would have made this call, it has only become all the more urgent. And in fact, it is all the reason why the miners are going deeper and deeper, because in the past, artisanal mining used to mean just people scavenging for an easy to get, abundant residues of gold in mines that are accessible. The fact that today you have a deep level operations, such as the one that we've seen at Stilfontein, which is 2 to 3 kilometer, whole miners traveling underground there. And spending months and months without an end. It is because the price is in such a way that it's actually neutralizing all the cost of extracting it. And these are the costs, by the way, which led the mining industry to close about 700 shafts between 1979 to where we are now. There's 700 mines, mainly abandoned and derelict gold mines in this country. And what we are saying is that, particularly as the price is surging and the cost of extraction has become neutralized by the surge in the price of gold. And just to give you a sense, when the highest point of the mining, at the time when the price was at this peak, it was 850, right? US dollar per ounce. When you adjust it to inflation into this money, it's just slightly over 2,500. Ever since 1979, And I think particularly in the past 25 years, actually, the price has increased almost 20-fold. Just between now and last year, it has increased by 85%. That is the reason that we have seen a massive explosion of unregulated artisanal mining that unfortunately comes with the violence. And we say that there is unemployment in this country that is catastrophic. About 12 million people are unemployed. They are disparate. The idea that you can just criminalize and kill all of these people is not realistic. It's not just. We need to be able to find solution, and the solution is here in our land.
So let's look at some.
It makes sense that we extract it regularly.
Mr.
And
Sebe,
therefore we say mines must take.
Mr. Sebe, if we could, as we wrap up this afternoon, let's look at some of the practical steps that you are proposing should be put in place in order to recapitalize the abandoned and care and maintenance mines. And how can recapitalization ensure that these mines are economically viable while also benefiting the workers and the local communities, as you've highlighted?
Now, the problem is that government has been looking, or this whole approach has been going to London, to Canada, to US, looking for investors. They are not coming. What we're saying is that today, when you look at the price, it makes sense. What forced the corporation to close this mine? All of that is gone, right? The 5,100 US dollar per ounce, we've never reached that. What we need, government must be able to expropriate. In any way, when these mines are abandoned, they're derelict, they fall to the state by default. But some of them are still under care and maintenance. It must take care, or it must take an effective possession of those that have fell on it by law or related to it by law, and expropriate those that are not in operation under a prolonged care and maintenance by the big corporations. And there must be two different approaches. One is there are those mines that have substantial reserves of gold that can be mined on industrial scale. The government must take public ownership of that, must recapitalize them, and make sure that we create tens of thousands of jobs we need to make headways into unemployment in those communities and in the country at large. Those that have poor levels of reserves, what then needs to happen is that government can still be able to set them aside to ensure that they then help artisanal miners in those areas to set up cooperatives that must then be regularized, then supported with equipment and safety training to ensure that they mine safely, efficiently, to earn decent earnings for themselves and their families. They must also be supported with a state buyer to ensure that they have an access to the market without relying on the networks of illicit trading on minerals that are controlled and monopolized by criminal syndicates that we know they involve the security operators in the mines, the police, and even the politicians.
I mean, it certainly is quite.
This will ensure that we avert what we are seeing with this operation that are just killing ordinary and disparate people that are unemployed.
All right, Mr. Sebe, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for that. It certainly is a multifaceted and multi-pronged challenge as far as the mines are concerned, as Mr. Sebe has so outlined. He is the president of the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa, Mametlwe Sebe. It's gone exactly 4:34 Central African time. Let's head over to the markets desk where Nosipho Zuma is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tammy. Good afternoon. In your business indicators this hour, one US dollar is trading at 15 Rand 98 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13 Pula 295. In Namibia, it is trading at 15 Namibian dollars 98. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 19 kwacha 61 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 09. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 154 birr 89. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 530. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 543. One US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 409. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 47 Egyptian pound. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 83. In Algeria, it is is trading at 128 dinar 49. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 02. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,208 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $5,264 and platinum at $2,651 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.14 a barrel. Now, for any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Soma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And standing by for the business of sport, here is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tammy. We kick off with football news. World Football's governing body, FIFA President Gianni Infantino, has signed an agreement to install 30 mini football pitches known as FIFA Arena across Morocco. FIFA is investing significant funds into building and renovating pitches and football infrastructure globally, primarily through the FIFA Forward Development Program, which allocated $2.25 billion for the 2023-2026 cycle. And here's a breakdown of how FIFA money is being used for pitches, the key funding programs. Each of FIFA's 211 member associations is entitled to up to $3 million for specific, well-planned football projects, including building stadiums and pitches during the 2023-2026 cycle. Operational costs are up to $1.225 million per member association and is provided for operational costs. The national coordinator of the registration of sportsmen footballers at the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, Ngo Joseph, has urged the Club Licensing Board of the Ghana Football Association, GFA, to monitor the payment of pension contributions of all footballers in the Ghana Premier League, the GPL, Division 1 League, and other divisions to ensure compliance. This, he emphasized, would go a long way to ensure that footballers enjoy a decent life in retirement. According to Ngo, very few clubs have complied with the directive to regularly pay the monthly contributions of players despite the ongoing campaign and awareness created by the SSNIT in collaboration with related agencies. He encouraged all stakeholders in the sporting industry to take this pension scheme seriously to give athletes a good future. Central Gauteng Athletics CGA generates revenue through 2026 club affiliation fees, $34 for community, $156 for corporate and permanent license orders managed via their online system. The board, which recently announced new elected members, requires a financial report at every executive board or council meeting. Joe Morris, who is the veteran South African athletics administrator, has urged the board to hit the ground running following the successful elections held at Germiston Stadium.
I believe that the new board should focus on policies, on strengthening our administration, strengthening our three disciplines, in fact mainly two, cross-country and road, ensuring that development is addressed to its maximum and they support development and they introduce buses to take the disadvantaged children to these meetings. It was done in the past, it can be done. I believe CGA is financially sound. They do have the resources.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us to +27 11 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. 9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the Move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushatama.
Dr. Anthony Ajayi, a leading researcher at the African Population and Health Research Center in Kenya, ending mistreatment and building dignity for adolescents during childbirth. Mistreatment and what's happening with these pregnant young girls. Let's talk a little bit about how the health system responds to that.
It's currently not a major priority for the health system in general, even for the Department of Health or the Ministries of Health on the continent. And it should be, because what is healthcare if it's not offered with dignity? Because young people can challenge this mistreatment themselves. If they are aware of their rights, they should be able to have channels to report mistreatment and seek redress. And that's really important. Neglect, abuse are unacceptable in the health facility.
Keeping you on the know and on the move. Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 41 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. Thank you to our market indicators and sports desk. South African consumers are showing signs of resilience. This is despite ongoing cost of living pressures. New data from Visa's annual retail spend monitor shows that holiday retail spending grew by nearly 8% year on year, with strong gains in both in-store and online shopping. Visa says business travel linked to the B20 and the G20 summit also played a key role in boosting national spend. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more details.
South African shoppers may be under pressure, but they haven't stopped spending. According to Visa's retail spend monitor, total holiday retail spend for the 2025-26 season grew by 7.9% year on year, pointing to what the company calls more intentional consumer behavior. Linesh Rimudli, country head for South Africa at Visa, says the data reflects a shift toward thoughtful needs-based spending.
Even with the cost of living pressures, South African consumers are still spending, as reflected in the 7.9% growth in holiday retail spend. This growth shows considered spending. Households are being far more intentional, prioritizing essentials and purchases that genuinely improve their day-to-day lives or their homes. In many ways, this points to a quiet resilience. Consumers haven't switched off from the economy. They're simply navigating it more thoughtfully. This level of engagement is encouraging because it suggests confidence has not disappeared.
The report also highlights a strong performance from online shopping, with e-commerce spending rising by almost 50%. However, physical stores continue to dominate, accounting for 88% of total holiday payment volumes. Moodley says retailers should focus on integration rather than choosing between digital or in-store channels.
While e-commerce growth is strong, we saw a surge of nearly 50% growth year on year. In-store shopping still dominates the payments volume, so retailers should focus on balancing their digital investment with physical experiences rather than prioritizing one over the other. Retailers should also treat digital and in-store channels as seamless as one unified journey where shoppers move effortlessly between online, mobile, and in-store touchpoints.
Beyond retail, Visa's data also shows the economic impact of hosting large international events. Business travel linked to the B20 and G20 summit, hosted in South Africa for the first time on the African continent, delivered a sharp uplift in spending, particularly in Johannesburg, with spillover benefits felt in Cape Town. Moodley says the challenge now is turning event-driven gains into long-term growth.
The B20 G20 summit provides a powerful case study. This was the first time the summit was hosted on the African continent, and it delivered a 49% uplift in spending in the host city, with positive spillover into destination cities like Cape Town. To turn this kind of impact into sustained growth, South Africa needs to plan beyond the event itself, encouraging delegates to extend their stays, promoting regional tourism and retail experiences, and integrating national campaigns that channel spend across multiple cities across South Africa.
Visa says these insights can help retailers, tourism players, and policymakers better plan for future peak seasons and major events as consumer behavior continues to evolve in a challenging economic climate. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
It is exactly 4:46 Central African Time. Now, one of the community leaders in South Africa, Basetsana Milete, says poverty-stricken communities are in a mental institution in their homes. She says this is because the grants provided by the state are not enough to sustain an individual, let alone an entire household. Milete was speaking at the Basic Income Grant, an urgent case to the President and National Treasury panel discussion held in Johannesburg, South Africa, in the Gauteng province. The discussion is held ahead of the national budget, which is set to take place in February of 2026. Notando Makutulela reports.
The South African government introduced a new form of social security grant when COVID-19 hit our shores. This grant is well known as the 350 grant and has been a main source of income for most vulnerable groups. The Social Relief of Distress grant was meant to assist individuals who lost their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This grant has since been relied upon by millions of South Africans who continue to struggle with securing a job and persistent poverty levels. This comes as the country grapples with high rates of unemployment. Community leader Basetsana Milete says when the grant was announced, she and her household welcomed it. However, the grant has not been consistent and poverty continues to prevail in their home and other households in her community.
We are in the mental state, we are in the mental institution in our own households. Sometimes we don't wake up because we are afraid to see more than what is inside. So it's going to change, it's going to be something that is going to change. Even our health, we are not normal. We are sick. We are just wearing a smile for just to smile, but deep inside we are broken as a community.
Isabel Frey, Oxfam G20 policy advisor, says the basic income grant only caters for 30% of South African households. However, Freya says the grants are not aligned with the country's cost of living.
None of our grants are aligned with the cost of living, and that is a huge problem. So the social relief of distress, and this was 2023, so I think it was still 350. We've got 3 poverty lines. We've got the food poverty line, which is just food, and it's the cost that WHO, World Health Organization, has costed, is the amount of food just to survive in South Africa. And the SROD was 58% of the food poverty line and 20% of the upper bound poverty line. It's less than even half of what the upper bound poverty line was, which was 2,600 Rand. Social relief of distress is less than a fifth of that. So people are getting support, but that's not enough support to actually survive.
South African Human Rights Commissioner Nomahlubi Kwenana says government needs to go back to what the Constitution has promised.
What I would say to you is that it becomes important for the state to go back to what the Constitution promised. The Constitution promised protection of its citizens, and I don't want to go to the next part, but it did promise. And that promise, when you go to the different matters that have been into the Constitutional Court that deals with whether social security, dignity, as well as equality, the Constitutional Court again emphasized that the state has that responsibility, so they cannot shy away from it.
Former Statistician General Dr. Balile Hodla says social security grants are an investment, not a cost.
Social protection is an investment, not a cost. For every 1 rand we spend in unit in UBI, we get 1.78 GDP growth. and that can happen within 36 months. The logic is that direct cash transfers fire up local township and village economies where the marginal propensity to consume is even highest.
Vern Harris from the Nelson Mandela Foundation says the country's current grant system has allowed people to survive, but people deserve to thrive. In February, Finance Minister Enoch Gotongana will table his national budget speech. Grant dependents say they hope the social relief of distress grant will be transformed into a basic income grant on a permanent basis at a higher monetary level, adding that this will go a long way in changing the socio-economic conditions in their communities. Notando Makutulela in Johannesburg.
That takes us to exactly 4:51 Central African time. In just a few minutes' time, we'll be heading over to Vue d'Afrique as we hand the reins to the French desk. And we say bonjour to you, Madame Joël.
Bonjour à toi, Tammy. Bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa. Sur Vue d'Afrique, dans quelques petites minutes, il sera question du Rwanda qui engage des poursuites contre le Royaume-Uni pour avoir suspendu des paiements dans le cadre d'un accord visant à accueillir des migrants expulsés. Et nous parlerons aussi de l'affaire de l'assassinat du journaliste Martin Ezogo au Cameroun et au Burkina Faso, de plusieurs interpellations tant des civils que des militaires après l'extradition de Paul-Henri Dameba. Et bien sûr, en seconde partie de Vue d'Afrique, en sport avec Jolino Sungu, il sera notamment question du Maroc qui organise la CAN féminine en mars prochain. Merci Tammy.
Merci beaucoup. That's Joel coming up in a few minutes' time.
Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Tami Ngubeni. The African Perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa.
For a look at the latest business and financial market developments this afternoon, we're joined by Lindile Malchas, investment strategist at Absa Investments. What a way to end our session this afternoon. Good to have you with us, Lindile. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Tammy, and good afternoon to the listeners as well.
So, Lindile, let's start off with you walking us through the last performance in both local and global markets.
Yes, so we are seeing global performance is a bit mixed. So seeing European stocks, so your likes of your Stocks 50 and your FTSE 100, those were trading lower. And then moving on to Asia, the Nikkei did end the day flat, and we did see Chinese equities. And then we are seeing, since the US markets have been open, it has opened in the green so far. Bringing it back to our local markets, continuing to see the all-share posting gains. So today up about 0.9%. This has been mainly driven by resources and on the back of higher gold and PGM prices. It is also quite pleasing to see that the Rand is trading below 16 Rand per dollar, so trading around 15 Rand 91 cents.
And let's take a look at some of the company movements. Looking at Mr. Price, the Mr. Price Group, they released their Q3 sales updates. What did you make of this? What really jumped out for you?
So the company delivered results that were broadly in line with what markets had expected. So the retail sales were about 3.6%, and they continued to post market share gains within the South African businesses. The metric that markets really look at is your like-for-like sales. Those were a bit marginal, so about 0.5% increase. And this was on the back of lower volumes. So we did see volumes declining within that segment. However, the company did manage to offset this by price increases. In terms of the online sales, those grew about 3.5%. And another important metric that markets look at is your gross margins. That did contract a bit over the festive period, but management is expecting those to return to more or less around the 2025 levels. And then what did stand out in terms of the results was the cellular division. So that posted sales gains of around 11%, and also continuing to see further market share gains and also expanding on margins. And then on the back of the results, the share is up by a modest 0.8% so far today.
And looking at the week that is to come, the week that we're in now, what are the key factors that the markets are going to be watching for the rest of this week?
Yeah, so Tammy, I think in my view, what will be key this week will be the US Fed's meeting, which is tonight. The Fed is convening. Markets are expecting them to keep the interest rates unchanged at this point. And in total for this year, expecting about 2 interest rate cuts. What also will be of interest, particularly today, is your fourth quarter earnings results from some of the big tech companies, so your likes of your Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla. And then also markets will be looking forward to results from Apple tomorrow. And then bringing it back locally, I think the key point here will be the South African Reserve Bank. They are also convening tomorrow. And similar to what you're seeing in the US, markets are expecting those rates to remain unchanged.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that local and global markets update, as well as, performances of the various markets. Certainly looking forward to those fourth quarter results coming up. Thank you so much, Lindile.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank
Cheers.
you. That's Lindile Malgas. Thank you. He is investment strategist at Absa Investments. He brings us to exactly 56 minutes after 4 p.m.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
As we wrap up this Wednesday edition, here's what we looked at today on the back of the rising gold price over $5,000 per ounce. The General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa, is known as GUWUSA, have once again brought to the forefront the need for the South African government to rehabilitate mines that have been decommissioned and those that are in care and maintenance, saying this is really an opportunity for the government to make hay while the sun shines, they say. Also, it's an opportunity to clamp down on the proliferation of illegal mining, saying that these mines are in communities that can still benefit from rejuvenated and revamped mines that have been decommissioned. We also took a look at credit ratings as far as Kenya is concerned, with Moody's having upgraded Kenya's sovereign rating, largely due to the long-term foreign currency user default rating being reduced for Kenya. But despite this, there are some challenges that continue to exist, like debt servicing and expenditure costs. That is part of what we've got in store for you for today, or what we brought you today on Africa in Business. As Lindile Malgas did highlight a bit earlier on, some Q4 numbers coming in for tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to take a look at those for you as well. That's how we come to the end of today's Africa in Business. I am Tammy Ngubeni from myself and the rest of the team. Restez connectés as we hand over now to the French desk, where Joël is standing by with your latest.
African